Hey, what's up, guys? So, if you're here, I guess you probably saw the video title. It's kind of my honest opinions of what I think about Elestrals. Now, normally I'm super hype about it. I mean, if you look at my channel here, I've got over 200 subs and 100 something videos on Elestrals, solely on Elestrals. I really enjoyed the game. Um, I'm not paid by Elestrals. I have no direct control over the IP. You may have seen me in the Kickstarter with a collaborator title. That's just because they're like, hey, we want people to be able to answer questions in Kickstarter. Words, you and some of the other guys making videos and stuff. You guys are, here all the time. You know what's kind of going on. We want you to help answer questions. I'm just a dude who's been hyping up the game. Um, I have no ties. They don't pay me. I've purchased any Elestrals product or merchandise that I have myself. I've gotten no special perks from it. Realistically, I'm just a guy who's playing the game and I enjoy the game. So that's where I'm coming from, and I want to take a step back from my overall just like hyping the game, not just shilling the game, but trying to promote the game to just kind of what do I really think, what are my honest opinions, and where do I think things are going about kind of everything with the game. And one last video in the last what is this 24 hours, 22 hours before the game comes out. I want to get this video out there and just have people kind of see my proper thoughts without the persona of me trying to be like, hey, this game is great. 'Cause it is fun, but I do want to be a little bit more realistic with my thoughts and opinions. Um, so I'll start with that. That's where this is coming from. I'm a dude. I play Elestrals. I've been making Elestrals content. Ideally, I would like the game to succeed so I can keep making content, and it's been a lot of fun. I just started making content on a whim because I wanted to make a joke video about the rules not being released when the rules weren't released yet. So let me just kind of jump in. So first off, if you're kind of getting into Elestrals because you want to collect the cards because you think they're cool, awesome. Unfortunately, a lot of the TCG space for collectors is driven by that dollar value of cards. Rare cards are worth money. People want to find rare cards, so they find money. It's almost a gambling sense. People are just like, oh, I'm paying money to get cards to I want to flip them and I want to collect them. I personally, I mean, I've been playing so many card games for a lot of my life. I have dozens of Magic the Gathering cards worth a bunch of money, and that's cool. A lot of them are worth money because they're old, not necessarily because I went out to buy them because they're expensive. But when you're looking at trading card games, a lot of the like big sellers of trading card games is old stuff that's worth a lot of money or new stuff that's really strong or really collectible or limited in quantity. And Elestrals being a new IP doesn't have people who are going to be opening boxes because they're like, oh, cool, Elestrals. I like Elestrals. Most people aren't going to know what Elestrals is. And that's just the fact. It's a new IP that, YouTuber A Drive made. That has connotations. People are skeptical because a YouTuber is trying to make something. That's always a negative connotation. Unfortunately, I don't believe it's the case with Dan. He's been very straightforward with everybody, and that's great. The collectability of the game, at least off the start, is going to be low. So if you're getting into the game because you want to get in early, because you're trying to potentially make money and flip cards in the future, you're not getting into the game for the right reasons, and you might actually be hurting the game in a sense. If you get into the game because you want to play the game, that's what's going to support the game. If you want to play the game, you want to see people other play the game, you want to get other people in the game to play the game, that's the mentality that means you should probably play Elestrals. If you're buying Elestrals product because you want to sell a stellar and flip some money, you're you're probably not going to get there. The game's new, the IP is new. It's going to be a rough start. Now there are TCGs recently like Flesh and Blood that have gotten there. And that's great. Flesh and Blood has really done well in the past few years, especially through COVID when they're a paper only game. They've done very strongly for themselves. And that means that Elestrals potentially could as well. And that's fantastic news. But unfortunately, that's the exception, not the norm. Will Elestrals be around in a few years? I don't know. I'm not getting anything in this Kickstarter that I don't plan on using myself. I don't plan on selling anything that I'm getting. I might get a couple extra cards or something to give to people. Again, I'm trying to make content for the game. But I'm out here. I'm getting enough stuff that I think will get me three of everything in the base set, and the rest is just cool extra. I want to be able to play the game, and that's my goal. Because I don't know if the game's going to be around in a few years. I want to make sure I have the cards that if I want to come back to the game, if the game is quote unquote dead in the future, I still have my cards and I can go, hey, let's play this game I have in my closet. It's kind of like a board game. It's pretty simple to pick up. Let's play some matches. That's my goal with Elestrals because I want to make sure that even if the game fails, I spent my money on something that I can use in the future. And that's just being realistic. I want to be open with myself and tell myself that unfortunately the norm is that most trading card games don't last that long. I'm going to do my best to make Elestrals as hype as possible and get it out to people, but I'm just one dude making videos on the internet and playing games and having a fun time. So that's my concern with the collectability of the game and the longevity of the game. There's potential. There's potential, but there's also, unfortunately, the norm is that most games don't last more than a few years, especially new IPs. I mean, there's dozens of games that I've picked up that have just failed over the past, 5, 10 years. It happens. It's unfortunate. Great games sometimes just die because the player base dies out. Who knows what'll happen there? Um, Continuing with some of my other kind of commentary on the game. Some of the stuff, I'm not gonna say stuff is rushed, but there is a lot of last minute stuff that has been added. The gold Pantera card, the graded prototype, stuff like that, which could theoretically have been thought up before the Kickstarter, but the time frame on the whole thing is very fast. If you look at most trading card games, most of the sets that come out, let's say New Magic the Gathering set, Brothers War that just came out, that set has probably been in production for a good year and a half or longer before it got sent out to people to buy. Elestrals have been going for about 11 months in production, almost a year in production, and they expect to have cards out to people next year. That's honestly very fast. Is that a bad thing? Not necessarily. I mean, obviously, we're still playtesting and balancing some cards here or there, which is good before the final print run gets submitted, that we're making sure that cards aren't too strong. But it is a very fast time frame, and that could mean that something has been overlooked. And that's just a reality. Unfortunately, I think that Dan is doing his best to really make sure that things are, I mean, he spent so much of his own money to just get the game going, production. I mean, just look at all the art that he's paid for. It's a lot of money and it's a lot of work, and I think he's been trying his hardest, and no no shade at him if something goes wrong, because it's the first set. He's doing a large print quantity. There's a lot going on. Something might be overlooked, and that's just a reality. It's not necessarily anyone's fault if something like that happens, but you never know. There could be something that just magically might, not necessarily magically, but something that not that is overlooked, but maybe isn't taken into account as seriously. Maybe, I don't know. There could be some issues. Again, he's trying to get these out by August of next year, which is a fair time frame for printing and sending stuff out and shipping. But it's assuming no hiccups. For all we know, something in the whole thing, like maybe the dice run into an issue where all the dice get incorrectly made or something. You never know. There might be hiccups. August is an aggressive target to hit, but we'll see what happens there. So I think the game's not being rushed per se, but people need to expect that there might be delays. It might take longer than expected. There's so much going on in the world. You never know. But I do appreciate that Dan is really trying to push to get cards in people's hands, to have people play the game, enjoy the game. It's his baby. He wants people to play it. So we'll see where that goes in the year to come. But I have full faith that we're gonna get the stuff that we ordered. Just, you never know what might come up, bump in the road, etc. I kind of want to talk about the rarities as well. So I might have scrolled past it. Oh, here we go. Stellars. Okay. If you want a card to play the game competitively, let's say, you will be able to find that card for a reasonable price. Caveat, maybe something like Poison Tip Arrow, Gorgon's Gaze, or Resting Your Laurels might drive a higher price rate because they're exclusive to starter decks. I think exclusive to starter decks, and I've said this in Discord in the past, I personally don't like exclusive cards in starter decks because it forces you to buy the starter deck, which is going to force you to buy, let's say, 38 cards you don't want to have. But also, at least this is set one. We could reprint cards that are, or rather not we, but Elestrals could reprint cards in set 2, 3 that people can't find in set 1 and 2 or whatnot because maybe not enough were opened or something. So at least there's a chance that cards that are too expensive can get reprinted in early sets to make them available for people. But I don't like the starter deck exclusives. I have to buy now 2 of each starter deck to make sure I get 3 copies of cards that I'm going to need to play the game. That's kind of frustrating. That means I'm spending a couple $100 instead of maybe $100 to get cards to play the game. It's cool that really important staples are in the starter decks, like Nectar of Gods. Everyone's going to need that card. It's in the starter deck, so you can just get 3 copies of Nectar of Gods with 2 starter decks, pretty much. Ambrosia, a lot of people can play Ambrosia. Those are in starter decks, and that's great. He really did do a good job making the starter decks have value. I just don't like exclusive cards in starter decks because now I could have theoretically bought 5 starter decks and some boxes and got them anyway. And now I'm going to have to buy extra starter decks, have a bunch of cards, duplicates, triplicates, 5, 6 copies of cards that I don't necessarily need to play or want to play, but I need them I'm going to have them because I need to buy the extra starter decks. I find that a little frustrating, in my opinion. The Stellars are very contentious. I personally think they're a good thing for the game as a whole, but it leads to a lot of people having frustrations with them. So the reason I think they're good as a whole is people with a lot of money to burn, who are extremely hype on the game, will buy lots of product to open the product to find the stellar rares so that they can have them in their collection or maybe try and sell them off for money. That will lead to a lot of product being opened and a lot of extra product going into secondary markets and driving prices down, which is, I think, a good thing for a new game to have low cost to entry into a competitive format when something like Magic the Gathering, even standard decks, which tend to be lower, like a non-budget standard Magic the Gathering deck is still like $200 sometimes $300. You can play standard in Magic the Gathering for like $50-$60 if you want to play, a tier 2 kind of deck. Yu-Gi-Oh, same thing. The decks get to be, a couple $100 to play in the formats that you want to play them in. And they print staples that they don't reprint in lower rarities for another year or two, so those cards are super expensive, but they're meta, so you have to have them. That's frustrating. Pokemon has less of that issue from my experience. Like, I think 8 out of the top 8 decks in the most recent Pokemon Championship, like 6 of the decks were less than $70, which is a really good price point for a standard rotation when that deck is going to be gone in 2 years. $60 now to play a solid deck for a year or two is that's a decent price point to entry, because people open lots of Pokemon boxes because they just want to have the cool cards. They don't care about the game necessarily. Little kids want Pokemon cards, not to play the game, to have Pokemon cards, and that leads to a lot more Pokemon cards being opened and on the market, driving their prices down. Pokemon's rarity, you can get the same card. There are cards in Pokemon that are like $5 versions and then like $80 versions of the same card in the same set, which means I'll just go buy the $5 version if I want to play the game. And I think that's a great kind of format, in a sense, not a format, but it's a great thing for the game that if I want to play the game competitively, I can go buy my staples for cheap in a dollar version of the card, so that the collectors can go buy their $100 card and I can have the 10-cent version, the dollar version, the $5 version, so I can play competitively with it. Most Pokemon TCG like decks aren't super expensive unless you go into the later formats, like the legacy stuff. I like that. I like that about Pokemon TCG. If I wanted to go build a competitive Pokemon TCG deck, I could potentially get it for like $80 after shipping and all that. And that's really cool. You can get into the game super easily that way. So I'm hoping that The Stellars do that for Elestrals. It gets people to open boxes so that everyone can play the game for cheap. You know, I want to go buy the cards I need to play my deck. I'm going to get them for cheap. That would be cool. So that's my hope with Stellars. Not everyone's happy with Stellars because there are the collectors out there who don't have deep pockets, and they're going to be upset that they're not going to be able to get their favorite card in a Stellar version. And I feel for those people. I get it. Like, you have a favorite card and you can't get your favorite version of your favorite card because you don't have 2 grand because these Stellars are 1 in 20 boxes. So you'd have to buy like almost, what, 700 packs to get one Stellar. That's really frustrating for people, and I'm sorry. Like, I would love to get a Stellar Sonic Core. I know I'm not getting it. I'm just playing the game for function, not form right now. If I ever open a Stellar, I'm honestly just gonna sell it right away so I can potentially get more product in the future so I can keep playing the game for cheap. Like, I don't want to be spending money. I've played most of my Magic. I've been playing Magic for like 20, almost 20 years now. Legitimately playing Magic for almost 20 years. And the majority of the money I spend on Magic is money that I've made by playing in, drafts and, playing I've money I've made from the game, like playing in draft sealed, etc. And just selling expensive cards that I don't need. Like, it's going back a while, but Dark Ascension I played pre-release. I opened a foil Tameo, sold it for $60 in the spot, played 2 more pre-releases, got some more cards, sold those cards, walked out net even. That's how I play Magic. I play Magic by selling old stuff that I've had from 20 years ago. I go to a shop, it's like, hey, I want to play pre-release. Okay, can I sell this card for credit? And I go play pre-release. That's what I do. So I'm hoping something like, if I ever open up a rare card in Elestrals that sells for a lot of money, I'm just gonna sell it and get the cheaper version if I can. That's my goal. That's my hope. I think though that sellers are a good thing for the game as a competitive general whole. Lets people open more packs so that more people have cards, so that the cards can sell for cheaper, and that's good for the game, in my opinion. And it's unfortunate for the collectors. I know people like to collect their full sets of stuff. It's going to cost them an arm and a leg, and I'm sorry for you guys. I know it's frustrating. A lot of people have voiced their opinions in Discord. Um, but unfortunately, like, the better play for the game is to try to get more product open so that people can play more cards, so that the game gets played more, and we get more sets and people print the more stuff and people buy more stuff. Like, it's a better, I think, look for the game. You might want your Stellar, but if the game's dead in 10 years, you might look at that Stellar and be like, oh, well, that's just a piece of paper now. It looks a cool piece of paper, but it's not as special now because people aren't hyped about Elestrals. So that's my comments on Elestrals. On Stellar, sorry. I do want to make a couple comments on the digital app. I think people are going to be over expecting for the app. Straight up, I think people are expecting a Magic Arena experience. They're expecting a Master Duel experience. That's probably not what the app's going to be. Dan has said it's going to be a little bit more sandboxy with tools to play Elestrals specific to Elestrals in it. Which, full stop there, that's fine. That's actually probably good. It'll lead people to play the game. Getting an app out so people can play the game, that's good. But people, I think, are going to over expect on the app and complain about it. And I just want to make a comment now. Don't overhype the app in your mind. Expect it to allow you to play the game and enjoy the game, but don't expect it to be a full-fledged arena experience, a full-fledged Hearthstone experience, a full-fledged. It won't be that off the bat. It's a small dev team. You might see the Kickstarter $1.2 million. It's a lot of money. For these kind of things, these things cost millions of dollars to make normally. Magic Arena probably costs them like a ton of money, a lot more than $1 million to make, because they have a lot more than one person working on the app. So try to keep your expectations in line with the digital app. It's going to be great. We're going to have fun with it. But just be aware the app isn't going to be the best experience in the world. But it's nice to have an official simulator with all the cards to have fun, connect to people online to play much more easier than buying something like Tabletop Simulator that doesn't support the game. You can do it on your phone. That's, it's good. It's honestly a positive thing, but keep your expectations in line with the game. Do I have anything else I want to say here? Um, Not too much. I mean, there's a lot of unique, cool, different add-ons that again I think might delay something. You never know when there's going to be a hiccup. Um, but overall, I, it's all here. Like if you like the game, you're gonna enjoy the game. You know, play trading cards if you like playing trading card games. Back Elestrals if you want to back Elestrals. Just make sure you're if you're putting money into Elestrals, make sure it's for realistic reasons. Don't expect to put in $1,000 into Elestrals. You're going to pull a Stellar. You're going to sell your Stellar for a ton of money. You don't know where the money's going to be in the game. You don't know how many people are, how big the secondary market is. Um, but those are just my like kind of down to earth thoughts. And I am a very much an optimist. I want the game to succeed. I haven't spent this much time on Elestrals content and playing the game for it to not to succeed, but my money input is zero into this project. Well, it's like $150, $200, something like that for my prototype decks and a little bit of merch, but just be realistic with yourself. Spend what you realistically want to get out of the game. Don't I don't think you should be spending your money if you're expecting to flip stuff and or expecting to profit by scalping stuff. That's I don't see why there's a scalping market already in the Kickstarter. Like people are trying to scalp Kickstarter products already on eBay, and it's dumb because you could just get them into Kickstarter. There's been on eBay prototype decks that were like $25, $30 a piece. Someone's trying to sell them for $100 a pop on eBay. Why? I don't know because there's not that community here yet. Like those people don't exist yet to buy that stuff. So don't expect your Elestrals cards to be worth money until they are actually worth money. If we get to that point in a couple years, they're gonna start by just being cool things to have to play a fun game with. Don't expect you to open up a pack and generate value and gamble and get money. Just don't. Like that's buy what you need, play the game for what you want to play, and have fun. I know this is a little bit rambly. I don't even know if I went over all the thoughts I wanted to. Um, I guess last thing, how does the gameplay feel? Like, is it a Yu-Gi-Oh clone? No. Is it Magic the Gathering and Yu-Gi-Oh combined? No. Is it Magic, Pokemon, Yu-Gi-Oh combined together? No. Does it take elements from all those games? Yes. It's a derivative game in the best sense of the word derivative. Like everything's derivative, you know? Every movie you watch, every art piece you see, every game you play, it's all derivative to some extent. But I do think that Elestrals takes some of the kind of best qualities of some of the games. Like my biggest criticism of Yu-Gi-Oh is that Yu-Gi-Oh doesn't have a resource system and its resources are cards in your hand and an extra deck. I don't like the lack of resources and I don't like the extra deck in Yu-Gi-Oh a ton, but I do enjoy playing Yu-Gi-Oh. I just have my criticisms game. The game Yu-Gi-Oh is a fun game to play. I love it. But I do have my criticisms of it. Magic the Gathering. I love Magic the Gathering. I do have my criticisms of it. You know, recent criticisms of Magic the Gathering. What are they doing to with their anniversary product? It's ridiculous. You know, it's you can like something and at the same time you can criticize it, and sometimes people forget that. Um, my biggest criticism of gameplay in Elestrals. Uh, I have concerns about proper balance. It's a new game. It's not a highly experienced development team who's made card games for the last 20 years. But they're, I mean, A Drive and the Celestial teams are doing their best. They've asked me balancing questions before. They've asked other community members how they feel about how certain cards are. Are they too strong, too weak? So they're really trying to do their best, and that might lead things to be a little unbalanced here or there, but growing pains. Um, I also have some criticisms on some of the rules with like Gorgon's Gaze. If you've played Elestrals yet, Gorgon's Gaze is a rules nightmare, and everybody knows it. The guy, you know, that wrote the rules for Dan officially, like Bo, they're great. They really are, but it's a really frustrating situation to try and set the rules up with Gorgon's Gaze. And we have a functional rule set for it, but putting it into words is very difficult. So yeah, those are my two criticisms with Elestrals. I think is gotta be careful around the balancing. It might be a little wonky at first. It might be stuff that stands far and away. I don't want cards to get banned, but unfortunately, cards might need to get banned. You never know. Well, someone might come into the community in a month from now and be like, "Oh, I just built this deck and it's broken." Too late to fix those cards because they're already being printed. The rules are pretty robust, but there's a couple again weird scenarios with cards like Gorgon's Gaze where we're gonna have to kind of really nail it down as a community of how to functionally represent that card. But yeah, that's my criticisms of the game. Those are my concerns. I know this video has been very long. I wanted to get my thoughts out personally, just stepping away from the I'm hyping up Elestrals persona, let's go persona to just like, what are my real thoughts? Like, what are my real, true, I have to be serious thoughts of what I'm doing with the game? And the final answer to that is I am spending the money I feel comfortable spending on the game to get what I want out of the game so that I can get my personal enjoyment out of it. I'm not getting stuff for content. I'm not getting stuff necessarily to give to people. I'm not buying a bunch of stuff in expectations that my $700 now is going to turn into 10 grand in 10 years from now. I'm just buying enough stuff so that I can get 3 of every card so I can play any deck I want and just have fun with the game. And if the game crashes and burns for some stupid reason, because I think it's a great game, or if it just crashes and burns because the TCG market is overloaded right now, I at least have the stuff that I want so that I can pull it out of my closet in 5 years and be like, oh yeah, Elestrals, let's play some Elestrals right now. I got all these cards. Let's go have some fun with it, right? So yeah, that's where I'm at. I know this video is kind of long. Um, I didn't want to go through and edit it. I just wanted to kind of go through my notes and my thoughts and really down to earth conversation of my thoughts are. Um, Overall, I'm still hyping Elestrals. I think it's a great game. I want people to play it. Just play it for the right reasons or back what you can. Don't have the wrong expectations for things. And that's my honest thoughts of Elestrals. I hope this gets to somebody who needs it. Um, Whether or not this means that you're taking back some of your pledging or not, sorry, Dan, if this made someone take their money away, but maybe it makes you think a little bit more about backing the project. I don't know. I just wanted my honest thoughts out. Other than that, I'll see you guys in the next video if you want to stick around. I do want to get into some more back into my other favorite card games. I want to play. I've just been playing some Master Duel and Pokemon TCG Live. I'll probably do some videos with that in the future. Some Magic Arena stuff. I like playing card games, so I'm going to continue to play Elestrals, making Elestrals content primarily. That's what my brand is currently built on. But I also want to expand out into other card games because I know a lot of people in Elestrals do play those other games too. So hopefully they'll stick around with me that way. But other than that, you guys have a great day and enjoy. See you in the next video.